So, good morning, students. Welcome to our lecture number 3, that is classification of plant diseases. Particularly, we have seen in the first lecture, that is definition, objectives, and significance of plant pathology in the first lecture, as well as history of plant pathology in our second lecture. This is our third lecture. We are starting with the classification. Particularly classification, there are thousands of diseases which attacks crop plants. Classification can be made based on several criterias. The various ways of classifying diseases of the plants are given below. Basically, what happens, classifications of the plant diseases in case of depends on its how it occurs, what is the location, what are the environmental conditions, what are the types of pathogen, what its etiology, how it occurs, and how it relates with the environment. We have seen this some of the important aspects in the significance of plant diseases also in plant pathology. So also on that basis, these all significance in terms to which it is meant for the classification. First of all, we are starting with the type of infection, how it causes the infection to particular area. So on that basis, we have classified the plant diseases. Type of infection, first is localized diseases. These diseases are limited to a definite area of an organ or a part of the plant. Example, leaf spot of anthracnose caused by different fungus. Basically, localized diseases means this type of pathogen or a disease is somewhat definite to that particular organ or part of the plant. Means leaf spot of and anthracnose diseases. Leaf spot occurs by Cercospora and anthracnose diseases caused by Coletoticum fungus. These diseases are specifically majorly on leaves, not on the stem, not on the fruits, not on any other parts, roots, but they specifically on the leaves. So that's why it is known as to be the localized diseases. Second type of infection, which is to be classified as a systemic disease. In this disease, the pathogen spread from the single infection point so as to infect all or most of the host tissues. Systemic disease, particularly, which is to be majorly known to be starts from the phloem tissue, which causes the xylem tissue infection to the all vascular tissues. Example is downy mildew caused by fungi and mosaic and leaf curls caused by viruses. So what happens in these cases, the vascular tissues is systemically damaged. Not only the leaves but whole plants may be causes the certain kind of symptoms and causes sometimes death of the plants. In this case of downy mildews, it causes the infection to the leaves as well as the branches as well as the fruits. So multiple effect can be seen on the plant of the symptoms. In case of mosaic, complete plant undergoes yellowing and causes the death of the plant, also in the leaf culls. So that's why in such cases, particularly in the virus as well as the fungal infection, total system of the plant means vascular tissues as well as leaf tissues occurs and causes the definite infection, maybe sometimes partial losses to the plant or maybe sometimes death of the plant. So these first classification known depends on the type of infection, how the infection occurs. So that is localized diseases as well as systemic diseases. Second type of classification, that is on the basis of perpetuation and spread. How the pathogen, how the microbes, maybe bacteria or maybe fungus, spread. This perpetuation means how it perpetuate in the soil, maybe in the plant parts, means how its living type, or maybe how it may be living, or maybe live in condition, or maybe some in depends on its habitat. And spread means how it spreads, by air, by water, by any tools and implements. So it depends on perpetuation and its spread. The first is soil borne diseases, second is seed borne disease, and third is airborne diseases. So first of all, soil borne diseases, the causal agents perpetuate and spread through soil, that is known as a soil borne diseases. So example is damping off caused by fungi like Pythium and root rot caused by Rhizoctonia species. Basically, most of all soil borne pathogens causing infection to the roots as well as the stem part. So sometimes causes the complete death of the plant because it causes directly to the infection to the vascular tissue. So that's why damping of root rot, stem rot, sometimes these are some of the key symptoms or key diseases which causes due to the soil-borne diseases. So the major issue here related with that the pathogen survives or live in the soil for a longer duration, means the pathogen or any kind of microbe survives in its natural habitat. So it is known to be the perpetuation. That's why it is known as a technical word, or in pathology, that is perpetuation, means living in that habitat. So survives in that habitat and spread by some kind of tools and implements or soil when cause the dissemination from one place to another place. So it may be causes the responsible for the spread of the pathogens. Second is seed-borne diseases. The seed or seed material help in the perpetuation and spread of this disease. The disease causing agents may be internally seed-borne or externally seed-borne. Example is loose motor feet caused by Ustilago TTC, Ustilago nuda TTC, and internally, that is internally seed-borne, and blast of rice, that is Pyricularia oryza, that is externally seed-borne disease. What happens if any farmer, or if we have collected a certain kind of infected seeds from an infected plant, and we are using the same seed in the next season for a planting, or seed material means any planting material or suckers in case of bananas. So if you are using the infected suckers, infected planting material from infected mother plant, or seeds from the infected plant, so that seeds or a seed material responsible for its survival, maybe this pathogen can be survive inside that particular seed or outside on the surface of the seed. So there are multiple diseases known as internal seed-borne as well as external seed-borne. So example is given here. You have to write the example as well if you are writing the answer in the examination. So maybe you have to write the internal seed-borne disease as well as external seed-borne disease examples. Next type of perpetuation and spread on which the classification is based, that is airborne diseases. In this type, the disease, the causal agents are spread by wind, that is early leaf spot of or late leaf spot of groundnut caused by Cercospora arachidicola and Personata, Cercospora personata respectively. What happens in these airborne diseases, one plant can causes infection to the other plant which is nearby, neighbor plants, means if it is causing the infection through leaves, through fruits, through any plant parts, maybe the branches also. What happens in this case, the conidia that is caused, or maybe any spores known to be the seed of the fungus which swims in the air by the air current, or maybe the sporangiospore burst in the air and lots of zoospores and other spores liberate in the air, and through air current they can come in contact with the healthy plants, maybe leaves, maybe branches, or maybe fruits, or maybe flower parts. So they entered inside the tissue, particularly in the case of the leaf tissue, because we have given the example of early leaf spot. So in case of groundnut, Cercospora conidia comes in contact with the healthy groundnut leaves and entered inside the leaf tissue to cause the infection. So this is known to be the airborne disease. From one plant to another plant, the spores or conidia can causes the infection through the air current. So these three types, second classification of disease depends on types of perpetuation and spray. First is type of infection. Second is type of perpetuation and spray. Third is extent of occurrence and geographical distribution. There are some of the important aspects in this, that is endemic diseases, epidemic or epiphytotic diseases, pandemic disease, and the fourth is sporadic disease. Sorry, what happened in case of endemic disease? when a disease is more or less constantly present from year to year in a moderate form. Example is wart of potato. Basically, in our North India, particularly in Himachal region, what happens, the wart of potato continuously occurring, more or less constantly present in that particular soil. So that particular disease, year after year, it coming or causing infection to the potato crop. So that's why it is called as endemic disease. Particular area is there, maybe North India, Himachal, and also some region of Kashmir Valley. So what happens there, the potato plantation continuously causing infection by the wart, that is Syncytium endobioticum, the filamentous bacteria, which comes under actinomycetes. So the example or the definition of the endemic disease is when the disease is more or less constantly present year to year. It's constantly coming from last 20 to 25 years, causing infection to the potatoes. That's why it is known as endemic disease. Epidemic or epiphytotic disease, second classification of the occurrence of disease, when the disease occurs commonly but assures destructive nature over a widespread area. Example is wheat rust, powder mildew of grapes, downy mildew of grapes, and ergot. So out of which we have seen or we have known about the destructive losses due to powder mildew of grapes or downy mildew of grapes in Maharashtra, as well as wheat rust in all over India, particularly in North India. So what happens? Epidemic, destructive disease. Epidemic means it's very destructive and having the great losses due to that particular disease. So when a disease occurs commonly but assures destructive natures, okay, means not every year, but when it occurs in a particular area, it causes a destructive losses, sometimes 100% losses. So that's why it comes under the epidemic diseases. An example is given here. Next is pandemic disease. When the epiphytotic disease spread throughout the continent and resulting heavy damage, example, black stem rust of wheat in India in 1947, lead blight of potato in Europe in 1845. So what happens when any disease occurs from continent to subcontinent or from one country to another country? So we have seen so many diseases from last uh, from last 1.5 year. We are seeing we are in relation with the COVID virus. So all starting with the one country and spreading all over to the other countries of the world. So same condition here. Epiphytotic disease spread throughout the continent and resulting heavy damage. If any, in case of lead blight of potato, there is a great example in the Europe in 1845. So it started from Ireland. It's one of the country in Europe. So it spread over to the Great Britain, England, then Belgium, Italy, France, Spain, and all over the European countries. So, and having the disease with the heavy destructive losses. So it is known to be the subcontinent and continent to cause the heavy damage in the pandemic situation, that is pandemic disease. Okay, and the fourth is sporadic disease, when the disease occurs at very irregular intervals and in different locations. That is, example is loose smut of jawar. What happens in this sporadic disease, if 1 year maybe it causes its infection in the Punjab region, so it will maybe in the next year it will cause the infection to maybe in case of Orissa, in the third year maybe it causes the infection to Maharashtra, or maybe fourth year maybe it causes the infection to Karnataka or maybe Tamil Nadu. So this type of irregular intervals in the different location. So that is comes under sporadic disease. The example is loose smut of jawar. It will not cause any infection continuously for a particular area or particular continent or particular country continuously in a continuous successions of the years. So it comes under the sporadic diseases. Example is loose smut of jawar. So this is about the third type of classification of the disease on the basis of extent of occurrence and geographical distribution, that is endemic, epidemic, pandemic, and sporadic. And the last classification is known to be the how the inoculum multiplies, multiplication of inoculum. Inoculum means it is known as a colonized load of a pathogen. Sorry, when a multiple development of a pathogenic colony or maybe any species develops in any subcontinent, multiplication rapidly in the form of inoculum means lots of numbers. Inoculum means a lot of number, multiplication of the fungus or multiplication of the bacteria in a colonized form and causes infection. So on that basis, multiplication of the inoculum, on that basis we can classify the diseases. Based on the multiplication of inoculum, diseases are classified as in simple disease that is known as monocyclic epidemics. Inoculum comes from a survivor and hence amount of inoculums for a given season's crop is fixed. So there is no repetition of the disease cycle within the crop season. Hence the disease spread will be slow, that is soil inhibiting pathogen like Pythium, Rhizoctonia and Sclerotium. That is monocyclic epidemics. What happens in case of monocyclic epidemics? It's multiplication of the inoculum. The inoculum or maybe any fungal or bacterial colonies develops in a particular area or in a particular season. It's fixed on, or maybe sometimes there is no repetition or no multiplication for a heavy instinct or a disease cycle in that particular crop season. Maybe if the soil inhibiting pathogen like Pythium causes the damping up, Rhizoctonia causes the root rot. But if we change the cropping pattern, so it will not causes the infection to that particular next crop. If we are changing any the variety of the crop, or maybe any cropping pattern, or maybe we are planting in Kharif season some leguminous crop, and in the next season if you are going for the cereals in the particular Rabi season, so it's a different family crop, so they are not dealing with that. The same pathogen will continue to cause the infection to the cereals also in the next season. So what happens, the cyclic rotation of the epidemics or cyclic rotation of the inoculum load will not increase to cause the infection to the disease. So that is known as monocyclic epidemics. That may be due to the pathogen is restricted to that particular plant. Okay, that the pathogen means simple, that is known to be the simple interest disease. What happens, the pathogen is majorly depend on that particular species, particular family, or a particular plant. So that's why they can multiply. If it is not available in that particular season, so the pathogen will not multiply. So that's why the spore load or the inoculum will be is less, and it will not repeated to that particular season. So that's why known to be the monocyclic epidemics, and the spore load or epidemic losses may be less. But in compound interest disease, that is polycyclic epidemics, inoculum is multiplied several times every 7 to 15 days in case of wheat rust during crop growth in a season. So the disease are spread within fast, that is wheat stem rust, that is the rice blast, powdery mildew, diseases of the different crops. What happens in this case of polycyclic epidemics, the inoculum multiplies rapidly within 7 to 15 days. Like for example, in the case of the wheat rust, the multiplication of the Uridospore as well as Teleospore in case of the rust is so fast, and it causes the infection to the nearby plants, then nearby fields, nearby continents, nearby villages, nearby talukas, districts, and multiplication rate is more as compared to the other plants. So the capacity of multiplying of that pathogen, or capacity of multiplying of that sporadic nature of the fungus or the bacteria or any pathogen is so fast, that is known as a polycyclic epidemics. It will not restrict to that any area or any field. It will goes beyond to the multiplication from day by day, or means you can say that every 7 days it will multiply in a duplicates. If it is spore load, it is uncountable, but if it is 10,000, okay, in square centimeter area, so it may be 20,000 within a 7 days. So just I'm giving the example. So spore load in case of polycyclic epidemics multiplies rapidly within a 7 days. It will be double or triple in a 15 days. So it will causes infection rapidly. So it depends on multiplication of inoculum, how it multiplies. As compared to monocyclic, it will multiplies very slowly, but in case of polycyclic, it will multiplies rapidly to generate heavy spore load, heavy inoculum in the field as well as nearby continent, villages, talukas, or maybe nearby fields, and causes the heavy damages in case of polycyclic epidemics diseases. So these are this is our topic number 3, classification of plant diseases, how we can classify. On the basis of that, we have classified the 4 types. That is type of, on the basis of type of infection, type of perpetuation and spread, extent of occurrence and geographic distribution, and multiplication of inoculum. In case of type of infection, on the basis of type of infection, localized disease, systemic disease. Okay, on the basis of type of perpetuation and spread, soil-borne disease, seed-borne disease, airborne disease. On the basis of extent of occurrence and geographic distribution, number 1, endemic disease, epidemic disease, pandemic disease, and sporadic disease. And number 4, last, is on the basis of multiplication of inoculum. Inoculum means spore load or a colonize of a pathogen or a microbe. On that basis, we have classified in the case of the simple interest disease, that is monocyclic epidemics, and compound interest disease, that is polycyclic epidemics. So this might be a question if the theoretical exam may be there, if possible, the university level this year, may, if there is a physical examination at the college level, then 4-mark question is there on the basis of this classification of plant disease for lecture number 3. So this is the end of our lecture number 3. In the next lecture, that is lecture number 4, we are going to see and we are going to discuss about important plant pathogen. So what are the plant pathogen which causes the infection to the crop plants? So we are going to study in the next lecture. So see you in the next lecture. Okay, good day.